One of the newspapers this week has talked about McCavity, the mystery cat, with respect to Nigel Farage, and replacing the word McCavity with Farage, and you've got a fairly accurate summary of Britain's most theatrical absentee this week. The Commons met to debate the most substantial Brexit realignment since 2016, a veritable reboot of the national trauma, and Starmer stood at the dispatch box to explain the UK-EU reset deal. Tories shuffled, Lib Dems muttered, SNP nodded disapprovingly, and Farage nowhere to be seen. Like a magician's puff of smoke or a toddler at tidy-up time, he'd vanished. Farage has since confirmed that he is indeed on holiday. His defence, exhaustion. The sort of fatigue that apparently cannot be cured by 9 trips to America, private jets, paid speaking engagements, and a stint in the Australian jungle. A break was required, you see, preferably in France, that very EU country he's spent a career criticising. He claims it's his first overseas break in 3 years, unless you count the jungle, or Hong Kong, or Washington, D.C., where he sipped cocktails with Trump's inner circle, while British fishermen waited for the sovereignty that they were promised when he rolled out Brexit. Let's pause there. A man who has made his entire political career out of rallying against European elites now finds sanctuary in Strasbourg's sun. You couldn't write this. Well, you could in verse. Nigel's a mystery man. He's called the hidden bore, for he's the part-time patriot who once campaigned for war. The Commons roared their fury loud, the nation's future bare, but when it comes to answers, old Nigel wasn't there. His absence is not merely a scheduling error, it's a deliberate retreat from a battlefield he helped to ignite. The EU deal included concessions on red tape, on pet passports, on mutual defence, and on fishing, that sacred symbol of Brexit Britain. Captain Cod, tailor-made for Farage to explode and exploit. He could have branded Starmer a traitor, accused him of treachery, or at the very least muttered surrender into his Brexit news microphone. Instead, GB News was devoid of Farage, and he sunned himself in Provence. This, I would argue, is no accident. Farage, master opportunist, knows Brexit is now electoral quicksand. The red tape is real. The queues at Dover interminable. Sovereignty rather less shiny when it delays your dog's travel documents. He's pivoting, not to the chamber but to the channel. GB News, social media, YouTube, whatever soundbites can be served without scrutiny, while Richard Tice dutifully fills in with Lee Anderson in the Commons vacuum, and Farage remains aloof, as if addressing the nation would risk polluting his suntan. And while Starmer was ridiculing Lee Anderson for standing in with the line, "Very good to see the substitute for the MP for Clacton," you could practically hear the smirks. When Starmer added that Farage was first through the E-gates under the New Deal, he didn't just land a joke, he eviscerated the irony. And this week, Farage missed his calling, not because he forgot, but because he knew. Brexit is no longer the golden goose, it's plucked. It's a limping chicken, wheezing under the weight of failed promises, and Farage, ever the clever animal, is off chasing the next populist morsel. Migration, fuel bills, woke bashing, Putin-light posturing. The Brexit file is closed. Yet it's precisely because of this pivot that Farage must be confronted, because in the distorted logic of our electoral system, a man who can't attend Parliament might just win a majority in it. If the polling continues, Reform UK on 29% could, under first past the post, form a government. Not because they're popular, but because our system is not proportional. With 29%, they could secure over 50% of the seats. It's not democracy, it's electoral sleight of hand. So what could be done? So Keir Starmer should do what Farage never could, stand up for democratic reform. The single transferable vote, proportionality, preferential ballots, these aren't just administrative tweets. They're the antidote to tyranny by minority. They're the firewall against a reform landslide built on a 30% rage. It's time we stop pretending that a man who cannot turn up to debate the very argument he claims is a surrender is serious about government. Farage has always preferred the pub to the parliament, the platform to the policy. He's not a patriot, he's a brand. And brands, as we know, go where the marketing leads. And in this case, the country cannot afford to be his next product line. So let's remember, when Westminster asked where he was, McCavity wasn't there. Not because he was busy, but because at last he sees the crime scene for what it is and wants no part in the mess that he's made. It's time Farage was made to account for the damage that he has actually caused. And in the meantime, we need to change the system. And changing the system to some form of proportional representation will, of course, increase Reform's representation in Parliament, as it will decrease the representation of Labour and of the Conservatives and increase the representation of the Lib Dems, oddly. But that's the price we have to pay, I think, to ensure that we have some sort of parity in Parliament rather than the opportunity under our present system for a loud majority to make a killing, quite literally.